Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast, brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com, and, of course, the former president of the Football Writers Association of America. Bill is in his first week after handing the reins off after one fruitful year as the president. We're coming to you live on our CFB Nation YouTube channel. Again, if you want to subscribe, just go over to youtube.com, search CFB Nation, and click subscribe. We apologize. We promised a Wednesday show, but we got caught up in a project at Sporting News. So we are here Thursday. I know Father Penny's got office hours on Thursday, so that's good for him, Bill. But we are going to try to do Wednesdays at 9:30 during the off season. So
I don't even know what day it is, honestly, because it's day 4 of kids not having school. Like when you said it's Wednesday or Thursday, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure which day it is. This is I think their entire school week will get wiped out. It's a formality at this point. We still have a fair amount of snow outside. Yeah, as you said, we've been busy at Sporting News trying to get, this is my favorite time of year, though, honestly. And it's not that I don't like college football or anything like that, but I like this couple months where I get to do a little college football, a little Super Bowl, we'll have our first bracketology out on Monday. I've been watching watching. I had a realization last night that this NCAA tournament's going to be insane. With Arizona, Duke, Gonzaga, all these Big Ten teams, NCAA tournament should be a lot of fun.
So I was working out this morning, Bill, up here at Big Canoe. Went down to the gym, and I was on the elliptical. I wanted to tell you this. I found the NFL Network while I was working out. They were showing an old Super Bowl, and Patriots were down 28-9 in the fourth quarter against the Falcons when I got on the elliptical. So
there you go.
I had to leave at 28-28. Do you remember how that one turned out? Do you have any recollection?
I remember Kimberly went to bed, and we had a Super Bowl party-ish. We had some friends over, and then it was a half party, though. It wasn't hey, you have to stay. And at halftime, some of them, because kids were younger, and they were our kids need to get to bed. And then at 28-9, when a couple of my buddies that left, we ended up texting each other the entire time because I was like, they're going to come back. They're going to come back. Is there any doubt when didn't they get it to 28-23, something like that? And then I'm like, there's no doubt that the Patriots are winning this football game.
Well, it was 28-12. They had to do 16
they had to get,
points.
Yeah, that's it. They had to be perfect with the 2-point conversions. That's right.
They had to be perfect. They were perfect, and we went on for there. So it made my run go fast, Bill. That was cool. That was fun. So anyway, well, let's get into some off-season topics. But before we do, some Trocchi trivia. As you well know, the Big Ten schedule came out this week, and I'm sure you have it memorized already. So this is the Trocchi trivia question. Are you ready for some Big Ten schedule trivia? I got 2 questions.
Sure.
There are 3 Big Ten SEC non-conference games next season. Can you name them? And then the second question, Notre Dame plays 3 Big Ten teams next year. Can you name them?
All right. I can get
you have to think about that. We will get it to the end of the show unless it gets spoiled in the comments. We'll see. We'll find out there. But that's the Trocchi trivia question. And now we will get into some bigger topics, some off-season topics, some Dabo Swinney. I know we're a little late on the Dabo Swinney discussion, but I want to hear your thoughts. I don't think we wrote about it specifically at sportingnews.com yet, but as everyone knows, Dabo Swinney basically pointed the finger big time at Ole Miss for tampering on a linebacker transfer who had transferred from Cal to Clemson, had agreed to an NIL deal, had moved in, was in class at Clemson, enrolled, accepted as a Clemson student. Ole Miss coach Pete Golding, according to Dabo, was texting him while he was in class, sent him a photo of $1 million check, and basically wouldn't leave him alone. The linebacker ended up going to Ole Miss, and Dabo is turning him in. He sent a bunch of stuff to the NCAA with timestamps and texts, and basically called out every other coach and said, don't complain about tampering. If you're not going to turn somebody in, we're turning somebody in. I think it sent shockwaves a little bit through college football fans. I think people knew it was happening, but to see the details, it was still a little shocking. And I think some coaches behind the scenes were like, bravo to Dabo, but they were also like, we're still not going to do it because we'll probably tamper with somebody else.
Yeah, I'm glad he did. Dabo takes a lot of crap from the media, honestly, because he doesn't get in the portal. He stands to his convictions. He's consistently had takes that go against the mainstream, and most of the time I agree with him. Like, he'll go over the top, like when he said, I won't be coaching college football. Yeah, you're still coaching college football, and you're going to use the portal because you're going to have to. And, some of the things that he did to build that program into a national championship contender, which I still think, the way the machine he had, it's kind of like what Indiana's doing now. Nobody expected them to be that good that long. Now, granted, Clemson had won a national title in 81, but point being, I'm okay with him calling out these coaches, because what are we doing? Or if we're allowed to, if a player is signed and you're allowed to text them in class and try to, that is tampering. It's textbook tampering. You can't do it in the NFL. You lose draft picks in the NFL when you do things like that. So I think Dabo's fine to do it. They need to, this is one way. If the NCAA is not going to police it, then the coaches are going to police it. And there might be some coaches mad at Dabo right now, but this is, it's fine by me.
He pointed out the hypocrisy for Ole Miss, because Ole Miss had been complaining about Lane Kiffin tampering with their kids, and then he does the same thing to Clemson. So there was a certain level of hypocrisy. There was a certain level of brazenness by Pete Golding, the head coach. He wasn't even going through intermediaries. He was doing it himself. It's interesting to point out the last two people he worked for were Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban. So I don't know where Golding picked up these tactics or whatever, but it made him look really bad. Like, if you want to go winners and losers, Golding looked pretty bad, and he's not said anything since then or anything. So it was just the kid's agent wanted $1 million from Clemson for the incriminating texts from Ole Miss, which, again, Clemson came out on the right side of that one. But our old friend from Sporting News, Matt Hayes, did you read his column this week?
No, what did Matt write?
The theme of it was, hey, Dabo, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And it wasn't totally tongue-in-cheek. He was basically like, you got to do what you got to do. There aren't any rules. Everybody knows there aren't any rules. I mean, there's technically rules, but they're unenforceable. If you want to have a competitive roster, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with what Matt writes, obviously. But I'm gonna have to text him now, because he went all in on he's been unloading on Michigan for about 2 months or 2 years with, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, but unless you're stealing signs. So I'll get on Matt about that a little bit. It's okay if the SEC cheats. It's not okay if the Big Ten cheats, but he's heard this speech from me before, so I'm not saying anything he hasn't heard. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just something that, if it's not allowed, make it not allowed. Make it to the point where you get penalized, you lose scholarships if you get caught. If they have the receipts, which Dabo was happy to pull out, you should be penalized for it.
So do you think there'll be meaningful change or not? So if you're the NCAA and you get all this stuff, and this is basically the first big formal tampering charge that they're going to deal with. If you were the NCAA, what would you do? How would you make an example out of them?
I mean, I don't know. Like, you maybe take away a couple scholarships, something like that, that kind of thing. And, or say, I mean, that's the most logical penalty. You can't.
Does Golden get suspended?
Maybe for a game if you catch him, maybe 2. So, like,
It seems like they've caught him. They have
right.
caught him.
Kirk Ferentz had to serve, I think he did like a half, something like that, when he got caught tampering. Or he may have served a game. Look that up real quick. He got caught like
for tampering with a.
Pretty sure. Iowa suspends Kirk Ferentz for, it was a recruiting violation. Yeah, he was suspended for 1 game for a recruiting violation, level 2, for contacting a player and his family prior to him entering the transfer portal. So tampering, and he got a 1-gamer for that. I think it was a nondescript gamer, something like that. And then you had the case with Wisconsin and Miami. There was a back and forth there. Just suspend the coaches. I think they'll get the message. If Pete Golding got a 2-game suspension, for example, I think we get the message then, because then you're like, if I get caught, you're not going to be on the sideline. Maybe that's the best way to legislate it.
Right. I heard on, I think it was the Yahoo podcast, maybe they were talking about like, and see if you agree with this. Coaches do not turn other coaches in because they know they're going to tamper themselves.
Yeah, I get that, but those days are over now. Like, like the days of old cheating where, which I kind of miss, honestly, where, teams were cheating behind the scenes and paying players I miss that. But there was this, we know they're doing it, so we're going to not tell on them. No, this isn't 3rd grade. Like, it's not 3rd grade. So if you're doing something that's against the rules, you should be punished for it, especially as we continue to make this more like the NFL, which is a byproduct of all the changes that we have with the play. And we're going to talk about a couple other here in a second.
Yeah, so the commenters are making a good point. Like, if you want to really impact somebody and really stop it, you slap a postseason ban on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a meaningful penalty. Like, these coaches' suspensions, these teams win all the games anyway. They don't miss the head coach, apparently. We've gone through that with the teams who have lost coaches and they still win. I mean, Ole Miss won without Lane Kiffin. That wasn't a suspension, but so that isn't terribly punitive. A couple of scholarships isn't terribly punitive. They'll pay him an NIL anyway. They'll get but a postseason ban is what it's all about, and that would make a huge impact.
No, I mean, that's going back to Michigan. That was why people were so upset. They got money and that kind of thing, but they didn't get a postseason ban. Turns out it didn't really matter. But I agree. I mean, if that would be the stiffest case, maybe like a repeat offender. First time you get a 1 to 2 game suspension, you get caught again, we're doing this. And I think that would eliminate some of the tampering with players, which, again, hard to police with cell phones and all those things. But when they pull out the receipts, and again, Dabo did, there were people criticizing him for that. I wouldn't. No, it's fine. Dabo's coming off a 7-6 season where everybody thought he was going to get fired, and we love trampling on the end of his program. So for him to lash out and do something like that, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. So the other big topic going across college sports, it's college basketball, but it could have an impact on college football. This Charles Bediako re-enrolling at Alabama. He played there for 2 years, went to the G League for 2 years. He's still inside his 5-year window, decided to re-enroll at Alabama. He missed taking classes in Tuscaloosa, apparently. So he has got eligibility for 1 more semester, even though he had been in the G League, had signed NBA contracts, and he sued his way back onto the team. And a judge granted a temporary restraining order, who, by the way, was an Alabama booster, and allowed him to suit up. He's played now 2 games for the Tide. And the question remains, the final ruling still seems to be up in the air. There's a lot of concern across college sports. Do you see this coming into play with college football if Bediako wins his case?
Probably, which is going to be awful. I mean, like, I subscribe to this. I think Brett Bielema brought this up a couple years ago. Give college kids 5 years. No red shirt, nothing. You get 5 years. Once you go pro, I think the sticky part here is they have agents and they have handlers now. So, like, it used to be once you signed an agent, you couldn't come back, right? I go way back to when I was in college. Brandon Hunter, he passed away since. He was our best player at Ohio University. Played in the NBA, played for your Celtics, by the way. After his junior year, he entered the NFL draft, or NBA draft. Probably could have played in the NFL too. We do all these stories on it, but he never hired an agent and came back. And it was fine. That's how it should be. You can test the waters, but if you have an agent or a handler, or if you once you're drafted or play professional basketball, you shouldn't be allowed to come back to college, right? Like this. Why is this so difficult, Bill? That's what I've read all these stories about it, and I don't understand why this is so difficult. He shouldn't be playing college basketball.
I know, but I guess the legal system says he can. And that's the crazy part, because they don't understand the difference between college and pro sports, because from the outside perspective, maybe it's like, well, if I can't play for this team and get paid, I can play for this team and get paid. Why can't you do that?
And that's the amateur part piece of this has been taken away. Like we always made jokes like Jay Billis. There was nothing amateur about college sports. I understand that. But now that is a good point that both are getting paid. In some cases in college football, the quarterbacks are getting paid more than they'll get paid at the professional level.
Right.
So
like I can see a college football kid playing for 4 years. He gets drafted late. He goes to training camp in the summertime. He's put on the practice squad in July, and he's like, you know what? I've got one more year. I could probably make $1 million to play linebacker at Oklahoma. Why don't I go back in July or August and join the Sooners? Like, that's the world where we don't want to see.
But it's coming.
But if Bediako wins, that's the world we could see.
Yeah, and again, this is why I think you should have, I don't know if these things are tied in, but like if you give a college kid 5 years and say you have 5 years of eligibility, maybe that's at basketball be harder because some of these guys go to the NBA after 2 and 1, and they do. And I like I said at the top when I was talking about, this is a take, but I think the NCAA tournament could be every bit as good as the college football playoff this year, if not better, because of the top 10 I'm looking at. You know, like these are awesome teams. And in order to have awesome teams, you have experienced players, those kind of things. Like Michigan's roster is very experienced. I watched Nebraska the other night. They're really good, and they've got a lot of experience. So is that how we do this? I'm not ducking the question. I still think you shouldn't be able to play once you play in the NBA, or if you step foot on a NFL training camp in August for the Patriots or the Rams, and then you're like, oh, I might get cut. I want to go back and play for Texas. I don't think you should be able to do that, but they could legislate this and make it weird. Of course, Alabama's at the center of this too, because Nate Oates has a pretty good basketball team. And once you sign a contract for a professional organization, I don't think you should be able to play college sports.
Right. And that's the hope. I think that we need a little more black and white clarity rather than these guys just testing, and always winning in court. And it's about time the NCAA won one. So speaking of, player movement and things like that, I want to touch on Miami and Darian Mensah. That one almost went to court, but then they came up with a settlement so that it stayed out of court. And Mensah/Miami is paying Duke whatever buyout they agreed to. I think never saw a number. I'm assuming it was going to be significant. And then the other piece of that is whatever Miami paid Duke supposedly is going to count against their salary cap. But meanwhile, their athletic director, Dan Radakovich, is advocating for no cap. He says that it's unenforceable anyway. So I don't think Miami's too worried about what they had to pay to Duke. And now they're going to enter the 2026 season with their third final year of eligibility, very experienced quarterback from Cam Ward to Carson Beck and now Darian Mensah. That seems to be their formula, and they tried it with several other quarterbacks before they got to Mensah. That whole thing just rubbed me the wrong way as well, with Mensah supposedly getting a 2-year contract at Duke and Miami just swooping in and doing whatever they want. As soon as they had doors closed to other quarterbacks, they stole Duke's starting quarterback.
Yeah, it sounds like baseball to me. Sounds like, this is what the sport. I've always made this comparison that college football is going to become baseball because, Ohio State's resources are different than Vanderbilt, quite frankly. Like, you know what I mean? Like Vanderbilt, them winning 10 games with the resources they have is nothing short of incredible. So I don't like this one either. I don't. I think, okay, it'll count against your salary cap. Yeah, but we'll just spend more money. That's what Miami's saying. We'll poach your quarterback after he's signed. We'll pay his buyout. There had to be some tampering there. Like, if Darian Mensah knew if he was getting in the portal, he knew somebody was going to bite, right? Like, I'm not just getting in the portal for show. It happened within the conference, which is wild. So it'd be like, to use the baseball analogy, Yankees taking somebody from the Blue Jays like that. It happens all the time, right? Like, or I just watched Moneyball a couple weeks ago where the Yankees were paying Dave Justice's contract while he was with the A's. Is that what we're doing in college football now? I mean, it's stupid. And
Miami finally has a player who won an ACC championship.
Yeah, you get Mensah. He's good too, and he will be good for Miami. But it just doesn't. Again, these are all these things that they're not, quite honestly, not all that fun to talk about, because I think the solutions to me are pretty easy. Like, once you sign your contract with your college, you got to play for them. We don't have trades. We don't have transaction wire. We're going to need one soon in college football. And these are the things about the sport I don't like.
Right. It's like glass half full, glass half empty. I mean, the sport can be cool and have problems at the same time. I don't think it's black and white. It's not collapsing upon itself. We saw record ratings for the national championship game or close to it. And the tournament was compelling. I think the majority of the people are excited. We stayed at 12 teams. I know you wanted 16, but I think the 12 team has proven to be fun.
It's fine.
For the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's not like the fact that they didn't go to 16. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're falling apart. I think, it gives us a couple. They've made a few tweaks to the playoff too, apparently, that are confusing to some people. What's the one, Bill? The group of 6 champion doesn't have to be a conference champion. They just have to be the highest rated group of 6 team.
Right, which they're basically relying straight rankings for the group of 16, whether they're a conference champion or not, which is putting more decision-making into the committee rather than less.
But I don't think
they wanted it the other way around. I don't see how a group of 6 team, who the highest group of 16 won't be a conference champion, but I think they're just covering all their bases.
Well, just like if it would probably come out like the American, if like Navy went 13-0 or 12-0, and then, they're still playing Army after, something like that. It'd have to be really quirky for that to happen, because they always rank the G6 conference champions the highest anyway. Maybe it's something to do with the Pac-12, with the new Pac-12 that we're going to get.
Right.
So,
I think I could see like Boise State being like number 9. And no other G5, G6 team is ranked, and they lose their conference championship game. They drop to like 15,
but they're still ranked higher.
They're still the highest, so then they still get to go. I think it's maybe something like that.
That's actually, you just painted that's the scenario right there. Like a really good Boise State team that is recognized. That's a really good one, actually. And then Notre Dame, like, I don't care. Like, everybody, like, if they don't want them in the top 12, they'll just move them down. We just watched them do it. So why do we care if they are automatically in, if they're in the top 12? It's irrelevant to me, because Notre Dame, if they're good enough to be in, they're in. And if the committee wants to slide them down, they just did it.
Right.
So, I mean, like, it's not like, why would you be on up? A lot of people were tweeting out Notre Dame's schedule, which, by the way, I know this question for the trivia. I'm not sure about the other one, but we'll get to that. But I know exactly what Notre Dame's schedule is because I saw like 100 people tweet it last week.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not very difficult. It's and the good thing about Notre Dame, if they're worried about these early season losses that they keep stumbling through, I think the hardest games are on the back end, and that'll be a change for them. I think Miami's on the back end, SMU, BYU, they're all on the back end of the.
USC is a Big Ten team not on the Notre Dame schedule, and I'm not trying to open any wounds there, but I know they're not on the schedule this year.
That would have been 4, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you could have played a 30-year schedule against the Big Ten.
So speaking of the Big Ten schedule, I don't know if you had any thoughts. We haven't really broken down. I think we did a cool thing last year. We'll do it again, the ranking the schedules within the conferences. We did the SEC and the Big Ten. I thought that was a good piece. It was instructive, and the schedules have become extremely important in these conferences where they are very unbalanced because the conferences are so bloated, and we could rank them and see who might have an easy path. We all kind of thought Indiana cruised through an easy path in year 1 of Signetti, but they kind of backed it up in year 2 for sure. So did you see, and I think Penn State maybe kind of has an easy path. Have you looked at, I know Ohio State's is
Right.
a little more difficult than it's been the past couple of years. So what were your takeaways
Well,
of the Big Ten reveal?
I'm going to pull it up real quick and concede that I don't know the third SEC matchup, if that's fair. Like, I know 2 of them in the trivia question. So I'm going to concede that I don't know the third one. Pull this up real quick.
Okay.
Because I know Ohio State plays Texas and I know Michigan plays Oklahoma. I'm not sure on the third one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, pull it like Ohio State's November is the most interesting part to me. Like, they're playing USC on the road, they're playing Oregon, they're playing Michigan. They could be that team. I obviously have a lot of friends, as our listeners know, that like the Buckeyes. They're sending 8-4 next year. I was like, come on, dude, you're not going 8-4. But they have what I call maybe they have 5 games on their schedule that they actually could lose, which has never happened in a long time in Ohio State. Like, when you're playing Indiana, Texas, Oregon, USC, and Michigan, that's 5 they're not going to lose all 5. So you go 3-2 against those guys, you're 10-2, you're in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you lose 3 of those 5, then it gets interesting. And that's why I think Indiana, Ohio State, I said this on the air in Columbus the other night, that's the biggest game in Indiana regular season history. Like, I know they just won the national title, but if they turn around and beat the Buckeyes again in Bloomington this year, I mean, I can't imagine like the takes that will come out of that. Wisconsin's got a tough schedule again. Michigan's got a tough schedule under Kyle Whittingham in year 1. Look at their November. They play at Oregon. They play at Ohio State. They get Oklahoma, Penn State, and Indiana at home. Those are big early, and Michigan State at home. So Kyle Whittingham's got a tough schedule to start. But you know
who has a nice path is Penn State.
They don't play. They're going to have a good year.
Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State.
You know, before the old days of the Big Ten, when you used to do the preview, you always looked at the teams that didn't play Ohio State and Michigan. Now you lump Oregon in there, and you're like, yeah, they miss all of them. And so Matt Campbell's
now you lump Indiana in there too.
Right. And now you have to say, and of course, Penn State and Indiana do it their way in terms of, you look at their non-conference schedule, they're not hard. So
they're not hard. I'd say they're super duper weak.
Well, okay. They're obviously, that's not a difficult schedule at all. They should both start
Marshall, Temple, and Buffalo. Woo.
Yeah, and then
they did the same thing last year. So
well, then they can't complain if they go 10-2 and they get left out. Right. Like, that's what you lose there. Just taking a peek at it. Iowa plays Michigan, Ohio State back to back. That's never easy. And then USC, let's look at theirs real quick. At Indiana, they've got a stretch versus Ohio State, at Indiana, at Penn State. Again, that's 2. They're East Coast trips. They've got Rutgers, Penn State, Indiana. This is part of the reason why they're not playing Notre Dame anymore. And I'm not going to go down that road for 20 minutes, but that when you're making the trip to Penn State and when you're going to go on the road twice to Indiana now, like Indiana and Notre Dame, they're not going to do that. So they're non-conference.
Still looking for a 12th game. They don't have a 12th game yet.
They should play Notre Dame right there, week 0. Notre Dame should agree to it.
Well, Notre Dame already replaced them with
Notre
BYU.
Dame can play a 13th game and play USC in week 0.
That'd be cool.
That'd be amazing. And then they can't say Notre Dame's schedule's terrible. No, they played USC to start. I would go for that. And
they need something. They need some spice in there.
And that's a good point. I don't know if we save that till later in the year, but those Notre Dame SEC Big Ten schedules pieces are always fun to write.
Yes, we'll get to that, and we'll get it up on sportingnews.com. But this week it's a lot of Super Bowl. Needless to say, you're doing some analysis on where the Super Bowl rosters came from as far as colleges are concerned, and we'll have a bunch of other pieces as we get ready for that. The Senior Bowl is this week, of course. We'll see what comes out of that. Boy, Michigan's defensive end, what was his name? Derek Moore, is it?
He can play.
He's showing out big time at the Senior Bowl. Holy mackerel.
Jennings Dunker at Iowa, the tackle. There's a breaking news for you that Iowa offensive linemen are doing well at the Senior Bowl. That's new. That's an every year headline.
That'll be good. So that's on Saturday. And that's it. So let's get back to Troche Trivia, and we'll head out for the week. So you seem to know 5/6 of the 2 questions, but
I'm not cheating. I'm like blocking out a Notre Dame logo. I didn't know that Minnesota was playing Mississippi State. I'll get that one out of the way. I knew the other 2, and then I'm fairly certain Notre Dame is playing Purdue. They're playing Wisconsin because they're playing Wisconsin at Lambeau
Field.
That'd be sweet. Because they already play them in Chicago.
Yes, they played them in Soldier Field.
It's the long-awaited like back half of that, and they're playing in the actual NFC North Stadium.
I think it was originally during the pandemic, and it got canceled. So
and then I think they're playing. Are they playing Sparty?
Sparty, you're correct. So Notre Dame has 3 Big Ten teams, and you're correct: Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Purdue. And then there are 3 Big Ten SEC games. It's Ohio State, Texas. It's Michigan, Oklahoma. And then the trick question part of it, Minnesota, Mississippi State.
Are they going down? Who's going where?
In Starkville.
Oh, boy. PJ, what are you doing?
PJ Fleck is going down to Starkville. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be the 3rd one, and people will be pointing to that game as a referendum on the 2 leagues and where they stand.
That'll be the tiebreaker because the other 2 will probably split. But yeah, I mean, we'll be right back to where we're at next September, hyping up that Texas Ohio State game for sure because they could be ranked 1 and 2 again, and then that'd be a big early one from Kyle Whittingham, Michigan. That'd be a fun one early in the season with Oklahoma coming up there.
No doubt. Big Ten SEC always gets the attention during the non-conference. So, all right, that's our show for today. We'll be back Wednesday, 9:30 Eastern time, and we will be back to break down some off-season stuff. We'll see if there's any more legal outcomes that we need to discuss, and hopefully we can kind of look more ahead towards next year and review the Senior Bowl and get ready for the draft and things like that. So
we're gonna have to bring a lawyer on the
everyone.
show.
Say what?
We're gonna bring a lawyer on the show, I think.
That's right. Exactly.
Sorry to interrupt.
As my friend Rob Cassidy, who works here, said yesterday, why didn't I go to law school when we were talking about some of this? So anyway, so thanks to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source for Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you next week.